Oh my God, it's Sunny Days! Sunny Days has returned!
SHW. This is our wrestling.
This is insane.
You think you could walk all over me, but I don't see that happening. We're warriors.
Are you kidding me right now? David Ali is your new Southern Honor Champion. Unbelievable. Spear to Hanson. But look, he never dropped his spear. Ooh.
You get a moonsault, and you get a moonsault, and you get a moonsault.
This crowd is going ballistic.
And now, the voices of Southern Honor Wrestling, Brandon Benefield and Gerard Bonner.
What is going on, everybody? Hey, it's Friday. You know what that means. It's time for another episode of SHW. This is Our Wrestling. It's me, B Double, and my brother from another mother, GB Gerard Bonner, your 2020 commentary team of the year in the state of Georgia. Yes, that's right. The big GWH Awards just happened this week. And GB, let's talk about it.
Wow. I promise I'm going to erase that word from my vocabulary, but I'm going to try to keep that, it is one of those moments, but I'll get to us in a second. But man, the awards happened this week and it's been a historic week all the way around. So I'm just glad to be back, and I'm glad that SHW is doing what we do. We've got a big show coming up now, 2 weeks from now or so, and that's moving really fast and all that stuff. But I'm good, and we're going to jump into these awards because, that's what the streets are talking about.
So, first of all, it's good to be back on Zoom here with you, because we were just talking before we got on the air that it's actually been a while since we've done one of these over the internet. The last couple we've done, because of the holidays and everything else going on, we've actually been doing the live version of this show for the pre-shows at SHW 22, then SHW 23.
Right.
And we're finally back here on the interwebs. Talking to the SHW faithful. So, so if you were unaware, Georgia wrestling history, every single year they've been doing it for. You know what? We should have even looked. I don't know how many years it's been.
I should have looked, but I'll find that out while you're talking.
It's been in the teens at least, in the high teens, I think, that they've done these awards in the state of Georgia, covering all the different promotions. Of course, SHW still being fairly new. We're only a couple years old, about 2.5 years old at this point. But last year we came in strong. And go ahead.
2009.
2009 was the first.
2009. That was the first one. Yes.
Okay. So so we came in strong last year and kind of swept a bunch of the awards, and a lot of people wondered, could they do it again in our second year? And not only our second year, but like a very weird second year where we had an unexpected almost 6 months off because of this crazy pandemic that's still lingering around here. But we still able to knock it out of the park. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about some of these awards that SHW took home this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Good Lord. The Georgia Wrestling History Awards, as we said, started back in 2009. And what I think people should understand about this and why this type of thing is important, if you look at organizations like the music industry, the film industry, all of these other spaces, what makes those awards important, like the Critics' Choice Awards or the Grammys or, the Oscars, is that they are voted on by their peers. Now, you get like the People's Choice Awards and things like that, which are voted on, American Music Awards as well, that are voted on by fans. But it is a unique, and in wrestling, the Slammies can be voted on by fans and things like that. AEW awards and, the NXT awards. But the Georgia Wrestling History Awards are actually voted on not even by a panel, but by people who are active in the wrestling community. So wrestlers, bookers, promoters, commentators, anybody who has a regular job in the wrestling industry in the state of Georgia has the opportunity to vote for the Georgia Wrestling History Award. So this is one of the reasons why, if you've been following wrestlers who talked about when they were nominated or talked about whether or not they won, it becomes important because you want the respect of your peers. You want the admiration of your peers. When your peers are telling you you're doing a good job, you really can believe it. And so that's a little bit of history about the Georgia Wrestling History Awards, which began in 2009. And so, as B Dub mentioned, 2020 was a very weird year for the pro wrestling business. And there were even questions based on how weird the year was if they were going to even do the Georgia Wrestling History Award. So that's a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm glad they ended up doing it, because there was a
Yes.
time there for a couple months where it was in question. It was like, well,
Yes.
were there even enough shows that were put on to even
Hmm.
justify doing the awards? And of course, there
Yeah.
was a lot of feedback from the promotions and from the wrestlers and from all the different workers that I think, yeah, you got to
Yeah.
have the awards. At least
Sure.
give us something to look forward to in the crazy year that was 2020.
And considering that a lot of wrestling organizations, after, obviously we saw WWE and AEW continue all the way through with empty arena shows, indie organizations didn't get the chance to necessarily do that.
Hmm.
So, to get the chance to come back, and I'll go so far as to say wrestlers who decided to compete, promoters who decided to put on shows, fans who decided to attend, all to some degree put their health and well-being up for grabs. No one more than the folks getting in the ring or putting the shows together. So I feel like every wrestler who performed, every promotion who had the opportunity to present a show deserved to at least have these awards, again, to honor them for all of their hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's get into it here. Let's
Let's
talk about
go.
some of these awards. Now, we're not going to cover every single award, but I will say we're going to cover the ones that involve SHW directly, which, let's be
There were a
honest,
lot of them.
was most of the awards. So we're not going to cover every single one, but we are going to cover most of them. And well, let's start out with, well, the promotion of the year. Southern Honor Wrestling, 2 years in a row, promotion of the year. And the guy that accepted that award also happened to be the promoter of the year,
Hmm.
Gary Lamb. How about Gary
Yeah.
Lamb? I feel like if he had not won, we would be hearing about it for a while.
Well,
On the other
sure.
hand, if he did win, which he did, we'll still probably be hearing about it for a while. So, but you know what? You got to give it up to the promoter of the year. And he found out at the awards, he double checked with the guys that run the show
Hmm.
how many promoters have won it, or what was the number of years that how am I trying to say this? Who
Yeah.
has
So
won
you're
it the
trying to,
most
right,
number of years?
right.
So he's won it
And
2 in a row.
he has won it 2 in a row, and there haven't been very many who can
Yeah.
say that they won it 2 in a row. Johnny Gayton from NWA Rampage Pro Wrestling did in 2010 and in 2011, and Shane Knowles did in 2012 and 2016 for Peach State Wrestling Alliance. So really, he's in a very unique space to have won it in 2019 and 2020. The only one to go back to back like that was Johnny Gayton. So if he wins it next year, he will be the first to win 3, and he'll be the first to three-peat. And you could argue he'll have something in common, say, with Stone Cold, the only 3-time Royal Rumble winner.
There you
Um,
go.
but to your point, man, Gary Lamb is a promoter's promoter. Let's just face it. It's what he does. And, whether you are a fan of his verbiage on social media or not, what you have to understand is this: he is always promoting. And the best thing I've often said to folks that I work with, when you're talking about advertising and promoting, the best promotions are when you don't know you're being promoted to. And so that's what he does, and he does it well. Nobody deserves it more than Gary Lamb.
Well, and what's so great about him, you nailed it. He is a promoter's promoter. Like, that's what he does for a living. Even outside
Yeah,
of SHW, he's a
absolutely.
promoter. And what makes it such a great working relationship is that he focuses on the promoting. Dylan,
Yes.
the booker, focuses on putting on the show. And that combination just works so well together. And that
Hmm.
leads us to Booker of the Year
It
for the
does.
second year in a row, Dylan Freimeyer. Congratulations to the man with the pin right there.
Absolutely. Congratulations to Dylan. And, you know, we talked about Gary winning Promoter of the Year 2 times in a row. Well, there aren't too many people that can say this either. Jimmy Rave, Rick Michaels, and Todd Sexton have each been named Booker of the Year twice. Strangely enough, they did it back to back as well.
Hmm.
So big stuff for Jimmy Rave, Rick Michaels, and Todd Sexton. So really, not that we do what we do for the sake of awards, but if we did, uh, there's inspiration now for both Gary and Dylan to win again because they both would make history. But all of that aside, let's face it, we're the best promotion. Obviously, because of the wrestlers in the ring, but because of the stories that are being told, thanks to great booking, and because we are being promoted very well by a great promoter. So it all works hand in hand and it all makes sense. And again, keep in mind, it's not the fans that voted for this,
Hmm.
even though our fans are the best and would have probably made these results the same. It is the workers, it is those in this business that say that. And that is major.
Very cool. Very cool. And let's move on down the list here. So this award is actually named for Kyle Matthews, Technician of the Year Award. And the guy that won it, not only did he have a killer match against Kyle Matthews, but then they teamed together at the last show and created
Sure did.
this tag team who I think they've worked together in the past, but we've
Mhm.
never seen them tag together in SHW until last month, or well, this earlier this month at SHW 23. I'm talking about Chip Day. Chip Day was the Technician of the Year, and coincidentally, during that tag match, we kind of dubbed them Technical Excellence
We did.
as the team name. So big props to Chip Day there.
Absolutely. Huge props to Chip Day. And when you think about it, that list in terms of nominees was really stacked. I mean,
Yeah.
first of all, it was all SHW. Let's just start there. You had Chip Day, you had Joe Black, and then, of course, from Lethal Poison, the former world heavyweight champion, the former SHW champion, Corey Hollis. So all three of them, either of them could have won that. Of course, the award is named for Kyle Matthews because he won it 8 times. Nobody's won
Yeah.
it more than him. So kind of fair to give it to him. But Chip Day, man, what a year Chip Day had. And certainly there were things we thought we would never see. And one of those was Chip Day in an SHW ring.
Hmm.
And seeing that not just on a one-time basis for Rumblejack, but watching him have match after match every month and absolutely crush it. And let's remind folks that he went undefeated in SHW until the December show where we crowned a new champion, and he ended up getting pinned by our new champion, David Ali.
And don't forget, he's also defeated a couple of former SHW champs.
Absolutely.
So, we've said it on commentary during the shows. We've said it amongst ourselves. But you got to think he's looking to get into that SHW title picture sooner rather than later for sure.
Totally. I would totally love to see that. And can you imagine it? I mean, the story again writes itself. Ali and Chip Day, sign me up now. I can't wait for that one. That's amazing.
But hey, though, keep in mind, it's already been announced that, and we'll talk a little bit more about SHW 24 here at the
Yeah.
end of the show and kind of tell you what we've heard has been announced already. But David Ali's got to get through Sunny Days
This
before he
is
goes anywhere
true.
else. Yeah.
And that might not happen.
Yeah, that's going to be
That
a
might
tall
not happen.
task. So
Yeah.
let's move on down the list here of more winners from the Georgia Wrestling History Awards for 2020. Let's talk about referee real quick.
Mm.
Somebody who, well, let's just be honest. I think up until the pandemic, I think David Weekley had been maybe at one or two shows real briefly, but he
Yeah.
wasn't a regular referee at most of our shows. We had
Yeah.
Todd Fox and
Mhm.
Jeremy Prater were our main two guys. Of
Yes.
course, Todd Fox, his family, they just had a baby early
Yeah.
on in the pandemic. And so he's kind of doing his thing to keep the family safe and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
coming in to fill those shoes, David Weekley.
Mhm.
And that's not to say the only reason he won it was because he was at SHW. This guy is all over the state of Georgia.
Yes.
Anytime you look at like on the GWH reports from different shows,
Mhm.
you always saw David Weekley's name as one of the
That's right.
referees on these shows. And he's an amazing guy. And we got to know him a lot better over the last few months as he was
Yeah.
working with SHW. And big congratulations to David Weekley.
Absolutely. One of the things that he said during the acceptance was one of his goals for 2020 was to work at SHW, which I think that's just like amazing that wrestlers, referees, all of them want to get to spend time and apply their craft in our organization. And I'm really pumped for that. And so, congratulations to him. It's his second time winning the award. He won it back in 2018 as well. So,
Hmm.
shout out to him, man. That's pretty awesome. And he, again, is in rare air as Jeff McGowan won the award twice. And of course, D. Byers has won it like 4 times. So that's pretty crazy. But shout out to David Weekley, your referee of the year for 2020.
Well, there you go. Let's get to you know what? I'm going to get to the female and male
Yeah.
wrestlers of the year. Let's talk about female wrestler of the year. And before we tell you exactly who it was, because, well, I'm sure you've already heard at this point,
Yeah.
but if you'll recall last year, the Real Mean Girl had this trophy made, I guess, or
Yes.
refurbished, or however you want to say it. It had a race car on top, and it for some reason said 2003 on it, but the nameplate said Danny Jordan,
Yes.
2019 Female Wrestler of the Year. And if
Yes.
you asked her why it said 2003 on it, she would tell you, well, the 2 represents that it's her second time winning, and the
Yes.
3 represented that she was going to win it a third time. Well, her prophecy came true
It
as
did.
she just became a three-time female wrestler of the year in the state of Georgia, our very own Danny J.
You know, there's a lot that you can say about Danny Jordan. 2020 has been a challenging year for a lot of people. And I know Danny has gone through some challenges, but Danny is also one of those who, again, took lemons and made lemonade, like really good lemonade, as she found herself a regular on AEW Dark, which, you know, she was really the first of the SHW competitors to end up on AEW Dynamite when she had her match back in October of 2019 against Nyla Rose. Well, she became a fixture on AEW Dark during 2020. In addition to literally transforming her body, transforming her wrestling style. Of course, we saw her during the Rumble Jack. She came in and was amazing. Of course, most recently, we saw her as the guest referee during the championship match in SHW 23. And she was amazing. And so shout out to Danny Jordan, who, by the way, with this win, makes history as she has held this title or won this trophy more than any other woman in Georgia wrestling history. Kind of previously holding that record was Kiera Hogan, who won it in 2016 and 2017. So think about it. The last 3 years, the female wrestling scene has been dominated by one person, Danny Jordan. She's SHW, and we're super proud of her.
That's right. She is the SHW women's female division, the women's division.
She
So,
is.
you know, there was always somebody coming in to face her.
That's right.
And last year when she had that trophy, I call it an official trophy, I don't know, whatever. That was kind of the almost like the women's title,
It
basically.
was. It
And
was.
it was just very cool that she was able to do it again here
Yes.
in 2020
Absolutely.
as she is a three-peat there, three-time.
You do know we're never going to hear the end of this, right?
Oh, I know. I'm sure. I
Oh my
just want to
gosh.
know if she's gonna. So one thing about the GWH awards this year is that they created actual trophies
Yeah.
rather than like a paper certificate or anything. This is like
Hmm.
legit trophies.
Yes.
So I'm curious if Danny's still gonna make her own or have one made for her, or if I don't know. We'll see.
Who
We'll see what
knows?
happens.
Who
But
knows?
you're exactly right. I'm sure
Yeah.
we'll hear all about it from her at some point. But so that was
Absolutely.
your female wrestler of the year for 2020. Let's talk about the male wrestler of the year for 2020.
Mhm.
Uh, this is a guy who we've had plenty to say about over the last few months after he hacked onto our podcast. He he campaigned to get into the Rumble Jack, and somehow he ended up getting into the Rumble Jack on a fluke because Sean
Yeah.
Dean couldn't make it at the last minute.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about Hold My Beer Hansen. I mean, talk about a fan favorite anywhere he goes. How crazy is it? He wins Male Performer of the Year.
You know, what do you say? And here's the thing. we remember when he was campaigning to get into the Rumble, Jack. We remember him hacking into our podcast. I wasn't a fan. He got into the well. Here was the thing: when he walked out to get into the Rumble, Jack, the place exploded. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen, and I just was like, "What is going on here?" And
I was like, hey, 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 what is going on here?
that's exactly what it was like. And I just, it was one of those things that it was like, okay, this is going to pass, but it's not. And people love him. He found his way into the championship scramble, you know, and 2021 must be his year because he won over Cyrus, which I never thought we would ever say that. He beat Cyrus. We'll talk about what he's going to do at SHW 24, but he is the picture of how to organically create a fan base, market yourself. He's the do it yourself, the DIY guy. And I'm proud of him from this perspective. Like, you've turned people into believers. That's the hardest thing to do in this business. And he did it to the point where his peers have voted him male performer of the year. Who can argue with it? They love him. Hold my beer.
I
What is
know.
what?
I know.
Oh,
But
2020.
big props to him, man, for just figuring out how to market himself and just doing a
Because a
great
lot
job
of folks
it.
can't do that.
Right, exactly. And that's a big piece of the puzzle.
It
That
is.
a lot of people can have all the skill in the world in the ring,
Yeah.
but they can't figure out the marketing part. They can't figure out the talking
Mhm.
part on the mic. I mean,
That's
there's
right.
a lot of different puzzle pieces to come together to make you that full package. So,
That's right.
and that marketing piece is a huge one. Speaking of which, and we'll talk about this again towards the end because we're going to talk a little bit about SHW 24 coming up on February 5th.
Mhm.
But he's got some new merch out. I don't know if you saw the T-shirt.
I did. I have two
By the way,
words.
I just bought one today.
Did you really? Oh,
Oh
my
yeah,
gosh.
I should be receiving it at SHW 24 in person.
Holy
So on the
cow.
pre-show that night, I'll have it. I'll show
You're gonna
everybody
have
on the
that.
pre-show.
That's
Yeah,
I think it's hilariously brilliant. I do.
we'll talk more about it towards the
I
end. But
just I
yeah.
won't give it away. But wow, brilliant.
Oh, let's
That's why
talk
he
about.
won.
It is. That's why he won. So
Yeah.
let's talk about one of our favorite people. Another one of the voices of SHW.
Oh
And
yes.
the first time a female has won Ring Announcer of the Year for the GWH Awards, our very own, the beautiful Diana Michelle. How about that?
We say that so well. Diana Michelle, I've always loved Diana Michelle. You've always loved Diana Michelle. She and I have a unique distinction. We began in SHW on the same night.
That's right.
And so to watch her just progress to really becoming one of the best, well, the best announcer, in the state, but she's not just in the state. She's all over the place. And, I was talking to some folks the other day, and I was just saying, in the wrestling business, just like any other business, you got to be easy to work with.
Mhm.
And she's just wonderful. She's an amazing person. She attracts the crowd. She draws them in, and she's great at what she does. And so, to be the first woman to win this award, and in a historic week here in our country where we have the first woman vice president, like, I just think all of this history being made is absolutely beautiful. And so shout out to Diana Michelle, our buddy, our friend, who is blazing the trail for females who want to come in this business and become announcers or do whatever you want to do. I think it's huge. And so shout out to her. Just, man, she's amazing. And I literally was screaming when I heard that she won, because that's us. That's
Yeah.
us.
That's our family, man. That's our family.
Absolutely.
And I also, before we move on, I didn't actually have this on my list because
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd consider him a main roster guy for SHW, but
Yeah.
I do want to give a nod of the cap to Tyler Colpret, who
Yes.
won the Most Improved Wrestler of the Year.
Yes.
Colpret was there. He actually defended the Pro South title at an SHW show.
He did.
He's been at the Rumble Jack.
Yes.
His former self had
Mhm.
been at SHW a time or two,
Yeah.
in previous years.
Yeah.
And so he reinvented himself when the pandemic
Yes.
hit,
Mhm.
and I mean really reinvented himself to the
Like,
fact that if you didn't know,
Yeah.
and you had seen his previous self and what he
Yeah.
became, you wouldn't realize it was the same guy, honestly.
Absolutely. That's the truth.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And not just that, but he, in his own words, claims to be the son of Gary Lamb. And Gary holds on to that. So
It's
Gary,
I only laugh because no, you're exactly right. Because if you
yeah,
follow either one of them on Facebook, they
yeah,
mention it all the time,
they
and it
do.
always gives me a good chuckle.
So shout out to Tyler Colpret again for winning most improved wrestler of the year, and that's again, that category was stacked as well.
Right.
With a lot of very deserving folks. So shout out, just great stuff, man. Congratulations to Tyler.
Very cool for him. And
Yeah.
I do want to say that a lot of people could say that this was the year of SHW for
Mhm.
the awards, but not only that, it was more so the year of Joe Black.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So let's just go down this list real quick. So
Woo.
SHW won Show of the Year, which was Still
Yes.
Here Too.
Yes.
Still Here Too was main evented by who?
Joe Black versus Corey Hollis for the SHW championship.
And who won the title that night?
That would be Joe Black.
On a bum leg, mind you.
On a bum leg.
Yeah.
That's right.
Put on an amazing show. That
Mhm.
was a show of the year. That was also the show we had. The Rock and Roll Express
That's
was
right.
there. It was the anniversary show, and
That's
just
right.
an amazing all around show. So we actually
Yeah.
won the award for Show of the Year for that.
Yes.
But let's stay on the topic of Joe Black here.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did he main event that show, not only did he win the title of that show, he
Yeah.
also won Match of the Year for the show from last January with the dog collar match with him and
Yes.
William Huckabee.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
let's just talk about that for a second, because
Ooh.
it seems like, and we've mentioned this before, the year
Yeah.
2020 felt like it was about 10 years long.
It did.
It was a
It
long,
did.
long year.
Yes.
And so when the awards were coming around and nominations were going out for different things, a lot of, especially in SHW circles, we were saying, hey, this dog collar match has got to be up for
Mm-hmm.
match of the year. But then people were like,
Yeah.
wait, was that in 2020? It was like, yeah, it was in 2020.
Yeah.
It was in
Yeah.
January of 2020,
That's right.
but it was in 2020. And so,
Yeah.
but that was one of those matches that so many people couldn't forget,
Right.
no matter how long ago it was, because there were so
Right.
many things that happened in that match.
Yeah.
Huckabee being put through the windshield of a car. And yes, you heard me correct.
Mhm.
The windshield of a car. And luckily I had great insurance. It was covering my car that night. So
Yes.
I just had to make up a story about I was in like a hurricane or something to
It was an act of God or something. like
right.
that,
I couldn't say it was a wrestling match. It was a dog collar
Right.
match.
That
at
just wouldn't
SHW.
work.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that match was amazing. And what can you say? I mean, it wasn't just that. It was mist being spit out. It was the ring being broken apart. And I thought one of the bars was going to hit one of the fans. I mean,
Yeah.
it was Joe Black being put through a table. But even before that, it was the entrances that were made. It was the promos leading up to it. It was, the month before, Huckabee signing the contract in his own blood. I mean, like, it was all of that.
Crazy.
And, crazy. It was crazy. And so, you think about it, for a match with all of the matches that we see in a given year, for a match to really stand out says plenty. And they did that, and it deserved to be match of the year. And we'll be talking about that match for years to come.
Absolutely. So still staying on Joe Black here.
Yes.
Promo of the year. And we talked about the Still Here 2 match against Corey Hollis. This was the promo leading up to that match. The promo where
Absolutely.
it was like, you want to describe it a little bit? It was kind of like doing
Sure.
a eulogy almost of sorts for Corey.
It was him giving a eulogy for Corey Hollis, going through his career, talking about their history. It was a 5-minute promo. And one of the things, just going behind the scenes just a little bit, one of the things that would tend to happen after shows for us is we get to go in the back and assist with the guys as they are, shooting promos for whatever may be next, or getting interviewed after a match to see how things are going. And from the first time I sat in a room with Joe Black, I dubbed him the Promo King.
Yeah.
And I have called him that ever since, because watching this guy, it's just like, how do you come up with this? How do you think of this? He is incredibly eloquent. He is well learned. He doesn't stutter. He knows what he wants to say, and he says it, and he paints such an amazing picture in doing so. And so, yeah, that promo, you've got to watch it if you haven't. It was amazing, and it gets me fired up even now just thinking about the brilliance of that. And I would put that promo and Joe Black against anybody in this business.
Yeah.
Name them. Any company, Joe Black can toast them when it comes to promos. It's amazing. And so he absolutely deserved that and everything else that he got.
Well, and so that to top it off, we talked about the male performer of the year. We talked about the female performer of the year. Well, the overall wrestler of the year, who else could it be other than Joe Black? But real quick, talk about who else was on that list, the nominees for that.
Yeah, that list was pretty heavy. I mean, you had David Ali on that list. Who else did we have?
I believe
on that
Logan
list?
Creed, I believe
Logan
was on
Creed was on that list.
So you had more SHW representation
it was
as the nominees.
It was a strong bit of SHW representation for that. And again, but if you think about it, cover to cover, who really had a better year than Joe Black? I mean, nobody. Here's a guy who started the year with the match of the year, came back through the pandemic and won the Rumble Jack to become the #1 contender. He main events the show of the year, right?
With the promo of the year leading up to it.
With the promo of the year, wins the championship, defends it on a bum leg, and, he'd still be our champion had he not gotten injured. Potentially. I don't know. But, I mean, there's a very strong chance he would have ended the year as champion. So, Joe Black, he was that guy in 2020.
Well, there you go. And I'm telling you, man, SHW just represented big time this week for these GWH awards. And, we mentioned Diana Michelle, ring announcer of the year. Now, prior to this year, they just had one award called announcer of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, that encapsulated not just ring announcers, but also commentators. So you had those two in the same category, which to me never made any sense. But this was the first year that we were actually up for, and the first year they actually split it. So you had a separate ring announcer award, and then they separated it into a commentary team award. Correct. And so we were very happy to see Diana get that, because the thing is, you and I would not want to go head to head with Diana Michelle.
No,
I don't think we wouldn't have stood a chance.
That's not part of the plan.
I joke with GB all the time that sometimes I have some of the same outfits as Diana Michelle, but I think she pulls them off a little bit better than I would. So you're welcome, folks.
Yeah,
that I don't show up to SHW with the fishnets on. You're welcome.
Yeah. He the suits work well for him.
Yeah,
and so we rock it that way. But as he was saying, this is the first year that the awards were split between announcer and commentary, and so really technically nobody's ever won that particular award before.
Right.
And so it was really an incredible honor for us to be nominated. And as you probably know by now, we have won the award for
what?
I know, right? Shocking.
We won?
We won.
Yes!
We won. Yeah.
Woo! Yeah.
We won the award. Man, tell me your thoughts on this, and then I'll share my thoughts, man. How does it feel to be named commentary team of the year?
So you kind of touched on it earlier with the wrestlers.
Yes.
How what makes this special is that it's a peer voted award. It's not a popularity contest amongst the fans. So you can't just go on Facebook and post to your friends and family and say, hey, I'm up for this award, vote for me. Click this link and vote for me. This is strictly for the folks within behind the curtain and everything. So you got the bookers, the promoters, the wrestlers themselves, the other announcers, the other commentators. All these folks are the ones that are voting. And so to me, that makes it all the more special to get that respect from your peers to say that, hey, you guys did a great job. The thing is, you and I, we were just pretty stoked just to be nominated.
Sure.
Like I didn't even think anything past being nominated. I was like, well, that's pretty cool. You
Right.
know,
Right.
it was our first, you and I, our first full solid year of working
Yes.
together in the commentary
Yes.
booth. And because you were December of 19 was
Yes.
your first
Yes.
show.
Right.
And so you did all of 2020 with me. However, like
That's
we've
right.
mentioned before, we were off for about 6 months there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. And I thought that you and I gelled right away.
Absolutely.
Actually, you know what, GB? I wasn't planning on doing this, but do you want to,
Okay.
since we pull the curtain back here from time to time here on the
Sure.
podcast, do
Yeah.
we want to let's tell the folks how this came about. Because I don't know
Because they
that we've told
probably don't
because
know.
I don't know that we've told this story on here.
Yeah.
We've told it to people when we're, at shows and stuff.
Yeah.
But let me just start, and we'll kind of tell this story of how GB came to be my commentary partner. Okay.
Yes.
So let's go back to November of 19.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I believe that was maybe SHW 14, I think.
Uh-huh.
Um, anyways, I was
Yeah.
there that night. My partner at the time was unable to make it, under the
Yes.
weather or whatever the reason was. I ended up calling the show by myself.
Mm-hmm.
About midway, well, I will say at the beginning, it was like the first match, I got stuck with Logan Chase. Ugh, ugh,
Wow.
ugh.
Wow.
Anyways, just for the one match, and then he interfered or did something. I don't know. But anyways, during that intermission,
Mhm.
GB happened to. Were you front row, second row?
Yeah. Yeah. Front
some-
row. One of those two. Yeah.
Something like that. So during intermission, he kind of walks up to where I'm sitting at the booth, because we're, where our announce booth is at ringside.
Yeah.
He comes over. He's like, "Hey, where's your partner tonight?" Oh, he's not here. And I remember GB was like, "Well, hey, if you ever need a commentary partner, I'd be interested."
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's good to know.
Right.
Well, I'll put that in my back pocket. That's good to
right.
know.
Right. Right.
Because for those of you that don't know, and if you're listening to us on here, you probably do know that GB also hosts the Faction podcast.
Mhm.
And so I knew you had a podcast. I knew you had the radio experience and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And of
Yeah.
course, my background. I work in
Mhm.
radio and production, all
Yeah.
that. So have that background. So that's one of the little common things we have.
Mhm.
And so fast forward to December of 19, which would have been, I guess, SHW 15.
Yes.
And same thing happened. Other guy couldn't make it. But I knew early in the day this time that the
Okay.
guy wasn't going to make it. So I
Right.
immediately let Dylan and Gary know, hey, he can't make it, but I know this guy, Gerard. And
Mhm.
Gary, I think, had met you, and I think Dylan might have met you too, maybe through
Yes.
DDPY or something. Like, I don't know.
Yes.
But
Mhm.
they knew of you.
Yeah.
And I think maybe, did you have Gary on the Faction at one point?
Yeah, we did. We had done for the October show, October 19, the Still Here one.
Right.
I was there with Courtney, and we my idea was, hey, we want to do a podcast in the car. I want to document what it's like going and what it's like coming back, because
Uh,
I had
That's the first time I heard you guys. I heard that episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So we did that just because I loved SHW. Like, there wasn't the intent of I'm going to get in or whatever. I really loved the show, and so I thought we'd do a podcast on that, and that's how that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I should have mentioned, that's actually where I met you the first time, was at that
That's right.
October show.
That's
And
right.
that's why in November, when I saw you again, you were like, "Hey, if you need a partner, let me know." And I was like, "All right."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyways, December happens. We found out early in the day Friday. I tell Dylan and Gary, "Hey, I think I know a guy that could fill in." And all three of us blow up your Facebook Messenger. And of all the days that you don't
Of
check your
all the
Facebook Messenger,
days.
of all the days you don't check your messages, it was that day. And so I
Yeah.
just got to the point where it got to be almost showtime. Doors open at 7, so it's always
Yeah.
an hour before bell time. And it got to be like almost 7.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, I'll just do it by myself again, like I had done at
Yeah.
the previous show.
Yeah.
And then I guess Dylan saw you walking through the door, and then you take
Yeah.
it from that point, because you were just coming to
Yes.
the show as a fan again.
I was just coming to the show as a fan, and the funny part was I had a really rough day that day, and my wife was like, "Do you have to go to this show?" And I was like, "Yes, I do," because I needed the outlet.
That's my
And
escape.
so
It's my
it
escape.
is. So I
Yes.
took the drive, and I was like, all right, I'm looking forward to the show. It's going to be great. And literally, I didn't get through the door. I got to the door, and Dylan meets me at the door, and he's like, "Dude, we've been trying to get a hold of you." And I was like, "Are you serious?" Now I think I'm losing my mind. And he's like, "Do you want to do commentary?" Now, you said that, it was 7 when the doors opened. I got there at 7:30. The show starts at 8,
Yeah.
right? So now in my head, I'm like, you know, and so I should also add this too. I am not the forward type of person at all. So for me to even ask you in November if you needed help with commentary, like that was a big deal for
I was
me.
gonna say, do
Like
you remember? Do you remember doing that?
I
Okay,
do,
okay,
because I had to talk myself up to do it.
okay.
I
Because
was just
I
like,
remember very clearly, and I was like, oh, that's
yeah.
cool.
In my head, I was just like, I need to, and I also felt like, all right, sure, maybe they'll remember me, maybe they won't, So when I got there, and Dylan's like, yeah, absolutely. So he's like, follow me. So I go to his car, and I text, Courtney and Brandon from the faction. I'm like, guys, oh my god, like this is about to happen, and and I had said yes so fast that I didn't get a chance to say no, and I
Right.
didn't get a chance to get scared. And so I had no notes. I had nothing, except for what I remembered from the last few cards. And I got in the booth with you, and we talked for a bit. And I remember Gary saying, "Hey, if you do good, I mean, you can have the job. Now, don't suck." And I'm like, "No pressure." And we're on in 5, 4. You know what I mean? So I'm
That's
like, "Oh
Gary.
my
That's
gosh."
Gary. That's Gary right there. Hey,
That's
don't suck.
Gary all day. And so it was just crazy, man. I mean, we fell right into it match 1. And from there, it's history. But that was crazy. It's
So,
crazy.
so what's interesting too, and like people that know you well enough now know that you're one of the best dressed, always looking so sharp.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
here's the thing, folks. Go back on
That night.
IWTV. Go back and watch IWTV, SHW 15 November or December of 19, and you're just wearing like a hoodie.
Yeah.
I actually, because prior to that, maybe November, I think I kind of dressed up a little because
Yeah.
we never did really before. And
Right.
then that November show, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna throw on a sport coat,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the
Yeah.
same thing in December. I was like, I'll get dressed up a little bit. So I'm a
Yeah.
little dressed up, and then you're wearing just the hoodie, just because you
Yeah.
were there as a fan to
Yeah.
start with. And then we did that show, and I remember at the end of the night, the main event was the street fight where
Yeah.
Corey
Won the title.
defeated Logan Creed
Yeah.
with the help of Gunnar Miller coming in,
That's right.
where he power bombed him on top of Creed, and that's how the
Yeah.
pinfall happened.
Yeah.
Man, what a crazy night. But yeah, that was
Crazy.
an insane match. And I remember
Yeah.
after everything was over, you and I are like packing up and everything, and we
Yeah.
both went, that felt pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you want to
Yeah.
come back next month?
Right.
And honestly, from that point, I think we have just gotten better and better and better.
Yeah.
And then, of course, during the pandemic, we started the podcast here.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that helped a lot, too, with the chemistry and just being able to
Absolutely.
bounce off of each other and feed off of each
Absolutely.
other. And so, man, and then once we came back, with, guns blazing in August for the Rumble Jack,
Yeah.
I blew my voice out pretty quick because it had been a
Yeah.
while
Yeah.
since we had
Yeah.
called commentary.
Yeah.
But it felt so good to be back.
It did.
And every show since we came back has just gotten better and better. And I think you and I have just gelled better and better, and the chemistry just keeps getting better and better. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
the fact that you and I have always noticed that and felt that.
Yeah.
And long answer to your original question,
Uh-huh.
which I just loved. I love it because us winning shows me that our peers and
Yes.
everybody else was noticing it as well.
Yes.
And to me, that's the coolest thing.
Yes.
And we have some of the guys, I won't name names because I don't want to embarrass
Sure.
anybody,
No.
but we've had guys at shows and even outside of the shows that have either contacted us or talked to us in person.
Yeah.
Just and that's the thing. They're like, they're not blowing smoke, but I'm
Right.
not sure. So I'm like, all right, are they just blowing smoke? Or are they being
Yeah.
legit, like being sincere? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I think they're sincere, like that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
And so it's always cool to hear the compliments from folks. And because,
is.
and you said this on your Facebook post when we got nominated a week or two ago,
Mhm.
that the main thing is like, we're not doing this for awards.
Right.
Like
Right.
I fell into this, and I don't know if the people know this story, and I'll
Yeah.
keep this one brief because I don't want to talk all night, but us just like stroking our egos here. Like,
We're
no,
just letting you in, guys.
I'm just letting them know like how it happened. Like, so
Absolutely.
now they know your story.
Yeah.
My story was I'd never called a match in my life. I'd never done commentary prior to the very first SHW show.
Wow.
Where and I'll give DC a shout out. DC was going to be one of the commentary guys, and he had heard me on a podcast, the Mean Street
Mhm.
podcast at the time, and
Right.
was like, "Hey, so I heard you on the podcast. You sound like you're pretty good on a mic. You want to join me on commentary?"
Yeah.
And the first thing I said to him was, "I've never done it before, but I
Right.
mean, I've been a fan for my whole life, so that
Right.
yeah, I mean, I'll give it a try."
Right.
And I'll be honest, and you guys can see for yourself. Go back and watch on IWTV. Those first few shows are a little rough, a little rocky on the commentary side, but I had no clue what I was doing,
Yeah, I
and
get
it,
it.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. You'll notice if you go back and watch the first couple shows and then go back and
Mhm.
watch like the last couple shows,
Mhm.
world of difference,
Yes.
world of difference. And
Yes.
even if
Yes.
you like, we joke all the time. Well, it's not really a joke. Do it for real. Go back and binge all the episodes or
Do that.
all the shows,
Yeah.
and but you'll definitely notice the evolution of the commentary throughout those
Yeah. Well,
all
it's
those
also the
shows.
evolution of the product as well. I mean, it's
Yeah,
always been a well-produced product, but I think, that to me is the beauty of an SHW is that
yeah,
every show continues to improve. And when you don't think that there's anything to improve on, we find a way to improve. And so I think that's what makes it special. And I think it's so special, just the array and amalgamation of talent that we have. And what I think these awards show us is that it's not just, I mean, yes, we have amazing wrestlers. I don't ever want to take away from that, but it's everything else as well. It's one giant team. It is the booking, it is the promoter, it is the announcer, it is the commentators. It's all of these folks coming together to tell an amazing story. And so it is one of the greatest honors of my life. I've been a wrestling fan my entire life. It goes generations deep. And it's funny because sometimes when you think to yourself, like in my head, I'm like, well, my gosh, it's my first year as a wrestling commentator. To win an award like this is crazy. But then you start to realize, well, no, I've been getting prepared for this my whole life.
right,
I've been getting prepared for this with the podcast that we have and with doing radio for umpteen years. And, to even going back to being that kid in third grade who loved wrestling so much that he was sitting in class playing with his pencils and making wrestling matches with his pencils and commentating on that.
right.
Like I think one of the things that happens is we'll switch back real quick, is that life has a way of preparing you for what it is that you're ultimately supposed to do. And sometimes you don't realize it because it's not a super big thing that's happening. So like you may not be employed in the field that you love, you just may have this thing that you love that you do really, really well. And you're finding that as you go down the road, bits and pieces are starting to come together. And all of a sudden, one day, boom, here comes an opportunity. And you don't realize you've been prepared for it the entire time until you just decide to say yes and you do it. And I think that's the case for both of us.
Yeah,
We didn't realize we were being prepared for it, but, we've been watching wrestling, we've been loving wrestling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when you get the opportunity to make the call, you do it. And because you love it so much, you're always looking for ways to improve. So this to me is a huge honor. Again, we can't say we did it for awards because there was no award available when we started this.
right, exactly.
So
Yeah,
it was never for that. But I know last year the pride I had in watching SHW just completely dominate this. And for me, I say Georgia Wrestling, look out, because this is all that SHW has done in 2 years. We're only going to get better. And not just us getting better, but I think it elevates the entire Georgia wrestling scene.
yeah,
And that's a great thing for the wrestling business in general, because, larger organizations, whatever they may be, always need to funnel in new talent all the way across the board. And when you're looking for folks, the Georgia scene is ripe. And so I'm excited that we have this honor. We get to carry this around. It's almost like being, the president or Grammy nominated or whatever. It's always on your resume, right? Like we'll always be award-winning commentators if we never win again. But
that's right.
I'm appreciative. So to all of the wrestlers, and I said this before, but I have to say it again, to all of the wrestlers who have given us the opportunity to tell your story, thank you. Thank you so much, because it means the world. And it's never about us getting ourselves over. It's about getting you over and making sure the world knows your name and your story. So thank you, Gary, thank you, Dylan. I thank you guys all the time because we couldn't do it without you. And Diana, my lord, the three of us, the three musketeers, this is what we do.
I love it. And yeah, I want to echo a lot of what you already said, but yeah, thank you from myself as well to all the wrestlers, all the promoters, bookers, everybody else that voted. And even during the nomination process, the folks that nominated us to begin with, like
Yes,
that was
absolutely.
super cool. And
Yeah,
again, we weren't expecting anything because,
yeah.
like GB said, we didn't even know this was going to be an award this year
Right.
because it hadn't been in years past. And so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the fact that we were up for it to begin with was amazing,
Yeah,
and the fact that we ended up winning it was even more amazing. So
yeah,
very thankful for everybody that voted, and just it is such a cool experience. I tell you this all the time. It's my favorite day of the month whenever we have a show.
yes,
I look forward
absolutely.
to it all month long. As soon as the show's over, I
Yeah,
can't wait for the next one to get here
yeah.
because I just look forward to it all the time. And what's the saying? Like, if you do something you love, you never work a
It's
day in
not
your
work.
life.
That's right.
Right. And
That's right.
so this is uh, I remember doing that first show, that first SHW show, and
Yeah,
DDP showed up, and we
yeah,
crowned Kevin Ryan as the first ever champ.
yeah,
And I had never done it before. I was super nervous going into it.
yeah,
I completely blew my voice out
yeah.
during the DDP moment, and then it was
Yes.
totally gone throughout the title match.
Yeah,
But afterwards, I just remember thinking like that was like the most fun I have had since I can't even remember. And I
absolutely.
just from that point on, having never done it before, I just
Yeah,
remember thinking like I can't wait to do this again.
absolutely.
And like I said, it took a little while before you really hit a groove and it started going
Yeah,
like, oh, okay, now
yeah,
now I got it. Now I know what we're
yeah,
doing here. And
yeah,
then of course, I don't know how to explain it. I know other people have gone through this before, but sometimes you just meet somebody and y'all just click. And
yeah,
I don't know how else to explain it other than it just happens. And
yeah,
that's exactly what happened in December of 2019 when
yeah,
you joined me for the very first time in the booth. And
yeah,
for whatever reason, it just clicked. And so I definitely want to thank you for coming along, man, because it was totally unexpected. It's
yeah,
always crazy how stuff turns out, how the world works, but
yeah.
it turned out great, and you and I have just become so much closer and become really close
Yes,
friends over this past
absolutely,
year. And
absolutely.
so I thank you for joining me, and you're obviously a huge part of the reason we won this. So
Well,
thank you,
thank
buddy.
you. Thank you, man, and thank you for accepting me for sure.
Absolutely.
That means the world. So now that you all have had a chance to get involved in our bromance, let's get you set up before we go for SHW 24
Yep.
because none of this stops with the awards. As you heard at SHW 23, I loved what Gary had to say. We don't do any of this for the awards or for what all the folks are going to say. We're looking to have fun in 21. And Lord, SHW 24
Ooh.
is going to be fun. Or if you have David Ali tell you, it could be work. Uh, we've got some stuff coming up, man. Tell them what's up for SHW 24 so far.
So the first match that we heard about
Mm-hmm.
was, of course, involving the guy you just mentioned, David Ali. And if you recall, the way SHW 23 ended, the way we went off the air that night was
Yeah.
Sunny Days sneaking up behind David Ali while he was on the stage. Of
Yeah.
course, well, actually, Ravenna Vane walked up in front of him,
Right.
which threw me
Right.
off because I was turned around looking at Sunny Days. I think you saw
Yeah.
Ravenna Vane
She just like
first.
appeared.
Like,
Yeah.
where'd she come from? I guess she came
Right.
out of the crowd
Right.
and distracted Ali. Meanwhile, Sunny Days walks up behind him and
Yeah.
takes him out right there and holds up the belt. And we're
Yeah.
thinking, wait a second.
Right.
Hey, what is going on here?
What's going on
And
here?
so yeah, so that's going to be the match here, the main event for SHW 24 on
Yeah.
February 5th. It's going to be David Ali going up against the monster of SHW, Sunny Days. My goodness.
That's going to be a wild one coming out of that huge cage match, which had its own share of controversy. Of course, now we're finding out folks are gunning for the SHW championship. And Sunny Days, that's going to be a tough task for David Ali. Can a savior conquer a monster? We'll find out on the 5th of February.
Absolutely. And of course, there was a triple threat tag team match that took place at the last show where we found out the winner of that match would become the number one contenders for the SHW tag team titles. Of course, you had Lethal Poison made up of Corey Hollis and Judas taking on the newly formed team that we dubbed Technical Excellence, which was
Yes.
Kyle Matthews and Chip Day.
Yes.
taking on the Honor Society, Kevin Ryan and Jordan Kingsley. Well,
Mhm.
by the way, what a crazy match that was, first of all.
Crazy.
Just
Absolutely nuts.
what an insane match. Anyways, Lethal Poison ended up winning. They are your number one contenders. They will face the returning Joey and Matt Lynch coming up. And of course, Matt's coming off some injuries.
Yeah.
Joey was coming off couldn't be around last month, and he'll be coming
Mhm.
back. So will they be in top shape? They had
I
a
think
month off, so we'll see.
they did have a month off, and if we go back to Still Here 2, well, no. Go back to the Rumble Jack. One of those cards. It wasn't Still Here 2, but I think it was the Rumble Jack, where Lethal Poison was supposed to take on Matt and Joey Lynch for the tag titles, and there was this change, and Brady Pierce wasn't there, and then Corey Hollis gets involved, but it was like Corey Hollis almost threw the match.
Oh, when he tapped out very quickly.
Yeah, when he tapped out
That's
super
right.
quickly. So, this is a much different scenario now because Corey Hollis isn't trying to protect his championship interests right now.
Mhm.
He seems to be solely focused on this tag team venture for the tag team championships. And, so you have a much stronger Lethal Poison connection right now than you do. Well, I'm not saying that what happening. Well, let me back up and say this. Remember, the Lynch mob wasn't present because there was a neck injury involved,
Yeah.
all kinds of crazy things going on. So this is going to be different, and it's a different environment now for the Lynches to defend their championship. This will be interesting, and I won't give any predictions or spoilers because I don't know any spoilers, but I just think Lethal Poison has a great chance to finally become tag team champions.
Whew. And that would make Corey Hollis the first person, I believe, right, to ever hold the
Yes.
SHW title and the tag title. So
That's right. He'll be the first.
very interesting. Well, of course he would, because Lynch Mob's the only team that's had the tag titles thus
That's
far.
right.
So
That's right.
it's crazy to think because they won them in February of last year.
That's right.
So they've almost had them for a full year.
That's right.
Wow. Well, coming up February 5th, it will be a full year, correct?
It will be a full year.
How about
That's right.
that? Yeah.
Whew, crazy.
Anyways, okay, moving down the list, because here's the thing. This whole past week, on top of the awards happening earlier this week,
Mhm.
every single day there was big matches that were announced this week. So
That's right.
we're just going to go down the list real quick and touch on each one. A guy that we were introduced to at the last show, who we had met him backstage before the show, and he seemed nice enough, but he was a little bit overbearing, a little bit annoying, kept referring to himself in the third person.
Mhm.
Named all of his moves after himself.
Yes.
I'm talking about Chris Banks.
Yes.
So as soon as SHW 24 was announced, the date was announced,
Yeah.
he immediately on social media was like, Chris Banks will be back. And we were like, oh, really?
Right.
Well, apparently SHW management okayed him coming back,
Mhm.
but they're going to put him up against Gunnar Miller.
Oh.
So how about that? Gunnar Miller
Mm.
will be taking on Chris Banks. In fact, there was a little video that went up this week.
Mhm.
Chris Banks was backstage at
Ah.
SHW 23. Gunnar Miller's walking by. Chris Banks
Yes.
stops him and
Yes.
tried to introduce himself to Gunnar Miller,
Mhm.
and Gunnar didn't seem to be very interested in the
No.
least.
No.
So Chris Banks said he felt disrespected, and so anyways, it's going to be Chris Banks, Gunnar Miller at SHW 24. I don't know. I think Chris Banks may have bitten off more than Chris Banks can handle.
He may have. I hope that Chris Banks doesn't have Hanson's death wish on him because I'm not signing up to fight Gunnar Miller anytime soon.
Yeah. So the guy that Chris Banks faced at the last show was the returning Sean Legacy, who we had
That's
not
right.
seen in nearly a year at
Yeah.
SHW. So he will be back. We don't know who his opponent's going to be just yet, but he
Okay.
will be back. He will be in action
Awesome.
on February 5th at SHW 24. Let's talk about Towers. Austin Towers coming off of an insane tables match
Yes.
with Sunny Days, where Sunny Days ended up winning.
Mhm.
If you recall, putting like belly first, stomach first,
Yes.
he was laid out on the table, and then Sunny Days come off the second rope with a
Mhm.
splash through the table. Like, I've never
Yeah.
seen anybody go through a table that way.
No.
They're
never.
usually on their back, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
the fact that, I mean, your body's not supposed to bend that way.
No, it's not.
And remember, if you'll recall, when he was getting up, he's like pulling out like a sliver of wood out of his like
Yeah.
midsection. I was like, it was
Yeah.
like, holy cow.
Yeah.
So who knows what kind of mood he's going to be in, but he's going to be taking on SHW newcomer Sin Bodhi. Do you know a lot about this guy?
Well, I know enough about him to know he's a very scary person.
Right.
I've seen him in some other organizations battle Trevor Eon, and I'm reminded of Halloween where he battled Trevor Eon, kind of like a Jason versus Freddy kind of
Wow.
scenario. So he's a frightening character, and part of me says I'm interested in seeing him. Another part of me is a little nervous. I don't know what that's going to do to Austin Towers, but we'll definitely see what happens on the 5th.
Oh, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about Towers and picking out these guys to wrestle these crazy face painted
I don't
guys
know.
because
Monsters.
he went through the match with the Monster Sunny Days at the last show, and
Yeah.
now he's getting ready to take on Sin Bodhi. So I don't know, man. I just saw the picture, the poster for the
The
match,
picture's enough.
and I was like, okay, this guy looks
Scary dude.
This guy looks scary. So,
Scary dude.
anywho, let's talk about a guy who, unfortunately, well, I don't want to sound biased because we are commentators and we're supposed to be unbiased. But you know what? I'll just say it. Unfortunately, he did not win the cage match and did not win the SHW title from David Ali at the last show. I'm talking about Owen Knight.
Yes.
Everybody's wondering what's on Owen's mind right now. What's next for Owen Knight? Well, it'll be the return of Ashton Starr's Petty Party with a special guest, Owen Knight. So
Oh,
I guess
boy.
we'll find out. I guess we'll see if Ashton asks the hard-hitting questions, and we'll see what's next. Any idea what it might be?
I don't know, but those petty parties haven't ended well, and Lord knows we're still recovering from the rules of a petty party match. So I got no idea. And if it's anything like the petty party rules, the rules will change as it goes along. So,
By the way, let's just do a quick shout out to our very own Susie Quinn showing up in the Petty Party Rules match with a kendo stick and a twisted T of all
Yes.
things,
yes,
and taking it to Ashton Starr, not only with a few kendo stick shots right next to the table, right next to where we were, and then as everybody saw the thing that went viral with the twisted T knocking the guy out. She had the twisted T, and she did the same thing to Ashton Starr. That might have been one of the loudest pops of the whole night.
Absolutely. We finally got justice for Susie. That made me happy.
It was fantastic. So I'm sure she'll be in the building, but I don't know that she'll be involved with the Petty Party.
Probably not.
I hope not. But anyways, the Petty Party will be taking place.
Yeah.
So the return of the Petty Party with a special guest, Owen Knight. So we will see what's in store. What's next for him. So,
Yeah.
you know, I mentioned the triple threat tag team match earlier. Well, we know what Lethal Poison's up to. They're going to be in the tag title match against the Lynch Mob.
Yeah.
The other two teams, well, Kyle Matthews will be going one-on-one with Jordan Kingsley.
Okay.
And then Chip Day will be going one-on-one with Kevin Ryan. Of course, that's a rematch from SHW 21, I believe.
That's right.
Where those two put on an amazing match.
That's right.
And so it's a little rematch from there. And then also all four of these guys went at it last month in that tag match. So
yeah,
two singles matches that I'm sure could be show stealers. We'll find out. But it'd be Kyle and Kingsley, and then Kevin Ryan and Chip Day. So
yeah, that's going to be amazing. Can't wait to see those.
This card, I'm telling you,
it's stacked.
It's stacked. As we I mean, I know you guys get tired of us saying it every month, but it's true. It's not like we're making it up. No. I mean, see for yourself. You guys saw the announcements this week.
That's right.
It's a stacked card. So I just can't wait. It's going to be February 5th. Tickets, of course, go on sale 5 p.m. the night of the show at the door. Doors will open at 7 p.m. And, of course, bell time is at 8 p.m. And we'll, of course, be live doing the Facebook pre-show starting 7 to 7:30. So
that's right.
Oh,
Make sure
man.
you get your tickets. It's going to be amazing. Make plans to be here. And, of course, if you've missed any of our shows, you can check them all out on IWTV. Go to independentwrestling.tv. You can sign up, and you can get your first 5 days for free using the promo code SHW. You can binge watch our first show all the way up to SHW 23.
Oh, it's going to be great. Well, you know what? I guess that's gonna do it for this week.
Yeah.
I mean, we covered all the what happened in the GWH awards. We
Mhm.
gave you a little preview of what's coming up at SHW 24 here in a
Yes.
couple of weeks. So, the thing is, we say this as soon as the pandemic. Well, it's still going on, but as soon as we came
Yeah.
back from the pandemic, all
Mhm.
of a sudden it was like the shows started coming so quickly. You
Yes.
know what I'm
Yes.
saying? We got so used to like
Yes.
waiting forever for the next show, and
Right.
now it's
Right.
like, oh man,
We
it's
got a
almost
show.
here. It's almost
Yeah.
here. So I'm sure we'll be back next week, but then of course we'll be back on the 5th as well, live
That's right.
from the action building. But
That's right.
I guess that's going to be do it for us. Anything else, GB, before we wrap it up?
No. Thanks again, everybody, for your continued support of all things SHW, the podcast, the shows, the awards. We appreciate you guys, and there's more to come.
Absolutely. Well, until next time, this has been SHW.
This is our wrestling.